I'll begin the news at this hour in Nigeria with labor matters. The closed-door meeting held between President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and labor leaders on Thursday is ended in deadlock. Now, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaure, has said the status quo on 250,000 naira minimum wage stands, while the federal government and organized private sector agreed on 62,000 naira. President Bola Tinubu has said he needed time to consult with other stakeholders before sending the bill for the new minimum wage to National Assembly. After discussing for over an hour, Labour leaders came out of the meeting with the president and told State House correspondents that they would go back to the people and return to the presidential villa. Away from that now, and now to judicial matters, the Supreme Court has affirmed the financial autonomy of Nigeria's 774 local governments. In its judgment on Thursday, a 7-member panel of the court unanimously upheld the suit brought by the federal government to strengthen the independence of local governments in the country. A member of the panel, Emmanuel Ajim, who delivered the court's lead judgment, held that the local governments across the country should from Thursday receive their allocations directly from the Accountant General of the Federation. A new arrangement ordered by the Supreme Court empowers the Accountant General of the Federation to bypass the state governments in the monthly disbursement of federal allocations to the local governments. The local government is Nigeria's third tier of government, the level of government closest to the grassroots. Meanwhile, a former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, has faulted the Supreme Court's judgment on local government autonomy. According to Ibori, the Supreme Court's ruling undermines the principle of federalism as outlined in Section 162(3) of the 1999 Constitution, which mandates the distribution of funds from the Federation account among federal, state, and local governments. He adds that Section 6 requires states to maintain a state joint local government account for these allocations. The former governor is of the opinion that this decision challenges true federalism by allowing federal interferences in local government administration, a domain traditionally reserved for state control. Ibori stated that the implications are significant and wants the decision reviewed to uphold federalism. And so to discuss this further, I'm being joined by legal practitioner Vincent Otaokpokpo. Vincent, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. A ruling has now been done by the Supreme Court. The question is on the impact, right? How would this ruling impact the ability of local governments to generate revenue and become financially sustainable in the long term?
Yes, thank you for having me. Before now, you agree with me that the local government system administration in Nigeria has been subjected to the whims and caprices of the executive governors of various states. So the judgment of the Supreme Court today is a landmark, it's far-reaching, it's encompassing, and it's going to impact favorably, positively on the people of Nigeria, especially at the local government level, unit level, where unit level, and the market women and all these people go to cast their vote and elect people to come to Abuja, governors and all what have you. And most, in the final analysis, they are not democracy, is not being accounted. They are not part of the system government in the reference.
Vincent, we seem to be losing your audio there. Vincent. We seem to have lost Vincent's audio there. We'll try to bring that conversation if we're able to establish a connection with him. But still on judicial matters, the Court of Justice of the Economic Community of West African States has found the Nigerian government guilty of human rights abuses in its response to the EndSARS protests in October 2020. The ruling, issued on July 10, 2024, mandates the Nigerian government to pay a total of 10 million naira in compensation to each victim named in the suit. News Central's Adesewa Odusoga reports.
It's been 4 years since the nationwide EndSARS protest, a movement against police brutality wrapped in a powerful expression of frustration by the citizens, especially the younger population, who demanded systemic change. The protest, which lasted 4 weeks, took a sad turn after a tragic event on October 20, 2020. The Nigerian government initially denied involvement in the shooting, but later acknowledged that soldiers were indeed present at the scene. By December 2021, 3 youth, including Obianuju Catherine, otherwise known as DJ Switch, and 2 others, brought a case before the ECOWAS Court against the Federal Republic of Nigeria to seek justice for themselves and those impacted by the violations. 3 years later, in its judgment, the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice found the federal government of Nigeria guilty of human rights abuses in its response to the protest.
The court awarded compensation 2 million naira each for the applicants when it found the Nigerian government in breach of its duty to protect the applicants from torture. It went ahead and added 2 million naira each for the applicants. So they were 2 million naira each at 5 different instances, meaning that each of the applicants was awarded 10 million naira each. So it's a total of 30 million naira each.
Reacting to the court rulings, human rights lawyers have also emphasized the need for the court to uphold the rights of its citizens in the face of abuses and the need to investigate wrongdoings.
Significant to also send a signal to the Nigerian state that the issue of the protection of rights of citizens and the fundamental duty of states to protect the rights of citizens on all the international human rights instruments that we have ratified is something we cannot undermine. And again, it also expands, and that's very interesting for me when I read the considerations of the court. It also expands the spectrum of the fundamental rights that are valuable for citizens.
The ECOWAS Court also held that the internal panel set up by the respondent states to investigate the allegations of abuse at the Lekki toll gate lacked independence and was questionable. In Lagos for News Central, Adesewa Odusoga.
And you're still watching News Now on News Central TV. Earlier, we had a guest, Vincent Otaokpokpo, who joined us to talk about the local government autonomy. And I think we have him back on. Vincent, many thanks for still staying with us and reconnecting. Now, earlier, we're talking about just the autonomy. You were telling me about the judgment and the impact it would have on the ability of local governments to generate revenue and become financially sustainable in the long term. Please go ahead.
Yes, I was saying that in the final analysis, the judgment will positively and impact on the local government, at least to strengthen their financial status and be able to make them, reach out to the grassroots. Because the electorate, the majority of the electorate, stays within the local government, and that is where we're supposed to have this democratic dividend and all those stuff, So it's going to assist the local government in the discharge of their constitutional mandate and responsibilities, both to the people as a third tier of government. I want to thank the Supreme Court of Nigeria. I want to thank the judiciary for the step they have taken today to, impact in our, not only in our electoral, in our constitutional jurisprudence, but even in our electoral process, because this will, one way or the other, strengthen the electoral process within the local government area. So I want to thank them. This is a very hard one, but I have chewed the bone today because the National Assembly has failed, with due respect, in their responsibility. They had the opportunity through the 4th alteration to the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999, 2nd alteration to the Constitution of 1999, 3rd alteration, 4th alteration, 5th alteration, already signed into law by the President in 2022 or thereabout. But they refused, despite the hearing expectations and cry, suffering, poverty on the part of the people at the local government level. They refused to amend this section 162 of the Constitution to remove this power from governors, which has been abused over the decade. I stand to disagree with the former governor of Delta State, Mr. Ibori, on the contradiction, the purported contradiction between the Section 162 and the judgment of the Supreme Court. He refused to understand that the part of the sources of law in Nigeria is judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, constitute a source of law in Nigeria. Section 4, Section 5, and Section 6 of the Constitution has given power to executive, judiciary, and legislative. Judiciary has power under Section 6, Subsection 6 to interpret law, and whatever they interpret binds on the people. Beyond this point, Section 287 of the Constitution Sub 1 says that Supreme Court judgment is final, and its judgment shall be enforced by all persons and authority throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including courts subordinate to that of Supreme Court. Said beyond this, Section 235 of the Constitution is very sacrosanct in this context. It says it makes the Supreme Court the final court in the land and as a policy court. So the judgment of the Supreme Court never in any way contradicts that section. The Supreme Court can, in their adjudicatory process of interpreting law, make law to bind the people or alter the provisions of an existing law. Professor Oliver Wendell-Holmes, Mr. Rees, a lawyer, Professor Oliver Wendell-Holmes, one of the sound judges of the English corridor, says that the prophecy of what the court will do in fact are nothing more pretentious and what I mean by law. Law is not only law as made by the legislature. Judiciary also in the process of interpreting law also makes law. So we should commend them. The sections affected in the Section 162 he mentioned is Section 162 subsection 5, 6, 7, and 8.
All right.
Section 4, and those sections are to today deemed deleted, inoperative, of no effect. The section that has to say that the local government money should be given to states to distribute, the one that is subsection 5, subsection 6 said there should be joint account, which the local government the state should operate. That is also abolished. So subsection 7 says that the state shall hold this money and give it out to local government, allocate it to local government in a deserving proportion.
All right, Vincent.
And that's in section 82. So those sections have been deemed by operation of judgment of the Supreme Court today abolished, nugatory, null and void, and of no effect. And I believe that Supreme National Assembly will delete it and through the Attorney General and what have you. Well, it is no more part of our law. So there's no contradiction. He should hail the Supreme Court for taking the bull by the horn, by salvaging the wrong that have been done. By
all right,
Vincent. That existed to... So sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, thank you so much for that, because we're pressed for time and we have to let you go. But thank you. We hope to see what will happen in the next coming weeks and days. And we hope to see that, I mean, another question is a topic of accountability. If they have all this money now being given to them directly, would they now be able to claim infrastructural development on the grassroots levels because the funds are not released to them? Now that it is, the conversation that needs to be on the table now should be accountability and transparency when it comes to implementation of these funds. But Vincent, I have to let you go, but thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Legal practitioner there, Vincent Ota Opopo. We'll take a short break. This is News Now on News Central TV. Stay with us. And welcome back. The Lagos State Government Wednesday commenced the demolition of all marked shanties and other illegal structures erected along the Bagada-Bariga drainage channel. Now, this came after the expiration of a 48-hour quit notice issued on Monday by the State Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, to owners of illegal structures along water channels in the area. Our news correspondent Bettina Unweli reports.
Millions of residents stranded, the Ministry of the Environment has been working tirelessly. It is in this vein that the government issued a 48-hour notice to owners of the structures to vacate the areas, citing the urgent need to clear illegal settlements to mitigate future flooding risks.
This era of anyhowness is not going to continue. It's just about enforcing the laws.
Okay.
If you have the law, enforce them. What brings development is when you enforce your law. But when you don't enforce, people will take a run at it because they believe there are no consequences. The difference between us and those people that are in developed countries, for every action, there are consequences. And that if you breach, they will punish you for it. And that's what Lagos State needs to start doing, and we're doing that for the past few months.
In a statement on his official X page, Tokunbo Wahab, the Commissioner of Environment and Water Resources, emphasized the importance of the demolition, stating that removing shanties along the Bariga-Gbagada drainage channel is critical to preventing similar flooding incidents in the state. This has, however, left the owners of these said shops and shanties with mixed feelings.
This business level. If I business, I motor wọ́n ní láti sọ pé wọ́n fẹ́ sá wá wó bẹ́ẹ̀ ní 24 hours. Someone lẹ́yìn tó wà ńbẹ̀ yẹn sìn ṣé wọ́n wọ̀ wọ́n yẹn ni. Wọ́n fún wa notice that is 24 hours. 1 day notice náà fún wa.
So nǹkan náà ṣe é sí pé wọ́n wá láti fẹ́ kókà náà ni. So it's not a bad thing because both of anything removable when they come they will tell you to remove this thing. When we remove despite that the time when they give us is very short. That is the problem what we have. If they give us like 1 or 2 weeks, still we can get space. We can do ourselves that we can get space to pack all these things.
Last week, Wednesday, the Gbagada Bariga axis witnessed massive flooding following a 10-hour downpour causing untold hardship for motorists and residents. It is hoped that all of these concerted efforts will not be in vain and will provide some respite in the face of these floods. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Several experts in Nigeria have called for an outright review of the adoption of genetically modified organisms and their role in the food and agricultural sector, saying there is significant or scientific evidence of its detrimental effects to the health of humans. Now, this was as they converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, to engage and share knowledge on raised concerns surrounding the adoption of GMOs.
The adoption of genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs in Nigeria's agricultural sector, has been a subject of intense debate among health advocates and scientists in the country. With Nigeria being among 11 countries in Africa that has adopted GM crops like cotton, cowpea, maize, soya beans, and wheat, their acceptance has been shaped by worries about its health implications and impact on the ecosystem.
It has been proven from research that we are sharing with you that these agents are promoting diabetes even in young children. Has it not baffled you that today young people who are not even fat are going down with hypertension?
They will not come to say they want to do GMOs to know how to end floods or grass. It's usually genes of commercial interest. In Nigeria, it is cassava, it is...
They say a lot that there is insufficient research. But we're telling you today that there is more than sufficient information to establish the fact that these things need to be reviewed.
These experts converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, to give their perspective on the adoption of GM crops in Nigeria, saying the use of some imported toxic chemicals for farming should be interrogated.
Nigeria is one of the largest importers of pesticide use. The last data from 2020, we're using about 147,000 metric tons of pesticides in Nigeria. We've been doing this since God knows when. But have hunger reduced, not just in Nigeria, all over the world? Have these chemicals reduced hunger? The answer is no.
The accused agencies in the country saddled with the responsibility of regulation to have been compromised, insisting that citizens should be given the right to choose what they eat.
South Africa is one of the first countries that approved commercialized GMOs. They rejected this so-called telomeres, but they brought it to Nigeria. And I don't think NEMA, if I go and pose as a developer and apply for permit, NEMA will give it to me. They are just in random, I don't know if they think they are marketers instead of regulators because they've not acted in the defense of our biodiversity.
They say they want the adoption of GMOs in the country to be interrogated, insisting that there is scientific evidence of its danger to the health and well-being of citizens.
Residents of Modu Suluri, a densely populated community in Maiduguri Metropolitan Council in Nigeria's Borno State, is grappling with lack of healthcare facility and its severe consequences. Now, this has prompted an appeal to government and charitable individuals to come to their aid. News Central's Umaru Kirawa went to the community and now reports.
Madusulumri community in Nigeria's state of Borno, predominantly agrarian with a rich cultural heritage, confronts formidable challenges in accessing essential medical services, impacting the well-being of its inhabitants. The lack of a hospital leaves residents vulnerable during emergencies, especially expectant mothers embarking on that journey of childbirth without adequate care.
Mu kashe kusan 700 800 irin su general irin su nasifan wannan kam yafi haka ma. To kaga wani mai karamin kwana wani mai karamin wanda bai da kuɗi kuma yana dan tunanin yaya zai yi. To sai a dinga dan bada maganin gargajiya.
Kirma da bika bunyara ma kai kamula ganala suro isha zamzu isa uma lida ngurodun wa baraza moto manyen fandende nafe manye mafe magonyo luyana kamul makalala yen sombo. Ada suke gwamnati an godon marti gwamnati a kungiya gade an da bana jin mambe ma bana kula da manyan litari manyan.
Gaskiya muna da ma karancin makaranta har ga Allah. Muna da yara da yawa a cikin anguwa da ba sa makaranta, muna buƙatar mu ga an mana makaranta da kuma taimakon asibitin.
Duri man tora le zai wasu rongura den ganan zai duri kam duma mai umbe koro halin zai na gadero raksu mashin biyazu walau aula biyazu sari amma rongura den bero wallo no ma cewa People
of the community largely depend on local chemists and sometimes concoctions by herbalists, as faraway hospitals serves as final options when health conditions have become worse.
Ó ti lé ní 30 years tádùúgbò yìí ti wà bọ́ àìní hospital àìní school àdúgbò yìí ó mú àdúgbò yìí ó mú fà sẹ́yìn púpọ̀. Àbúrò lọ́dọ̀ gómìnà àti gbogbo àwọn tí àṣẹ ń bẹ ní ọwọ́ wọn kan dákun kí wọ́n ṣàánú wa kan bá wa gbìyànjú rẹ̀.
Gwamnar askirnyana ngura da buran Kano ba kullum kala Kano yalan ngin wahala ruyen gaido kaman da ya shiro kanasar ci isu nafsuna andero Kano sukana alabara suka shiro askirnyana mun jina wallon ma andero sai salimriya alan andero litari ganaja rayena.
The elderly and extremely ill face hardships in managing their health, often unable to access routine checkups or specialized care. This situation poses critical issues, especially during emergencies when timely medical intervention can be a matter of life and death.
We went to Bagani and also State Specialist Hospital, and that place is far away from us. Before getting there, some people may start bleeding, and from there so on, we may lose life.
As Madusulumri community continues to endure healthcare hardships, their call for a hospital comes as a critical necessity.
The hope of the people of Madusulumri community in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, is that the government will in no distant time establish a primary health center that will meet to their health needs. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Nigeria's National Security Advisor has inaugurated a National Security and Logistics Committee for the upcoming digital population and housing census in the country. The inauguration was done in collaboration with the National Population Commission in Abuja, where members of the committee were tasked to ensure adequate security and logistics arrangements during the census and ensure the safeguard of census personnel and materials, amongst other responsibilities. Amadin Uyi reports.
The last census conducted in Nigeria was 18 years ago. This is against recommendations for the conduct of a national census by the United Nations, which stipulates every 10 years. While the National Population Commission has concluded plans for a nationwide digital population and housing census, an exercise that was supposed to have been carried out in April 2023, stakeholders say its importance cannot be overemphasized.
The need to provide the nation with accurate and reliable demographic data for policy formulation and planning for sustainable development cannot be overstated. It is in the light of this and the desire to bequeath an enduring legacy of evidence-based planning for sustainable development that the conduct of the national population and housing census is of topmost priority.
The National Population Commission says that preparations have been made, and the commission is ready for a census in September this year, once approval has been given by the president.
We have about 600,000 enumeration areas in the country. And we also conducted first and second census pre-test to test the instruments and the maps that we've been able to develop from the demarcation exercise.
As the National Security Advisor inaugurated a National Security and Logistics Committee with members drawn from several agencies, he informed them of deliverables expected from the committee. The National Population Commission assured that they will receive maximum support.
I want to assure all members of the committee of the steadfast support from the Commission. We are ready to fully support the committee in all areas to make it succeed in its own assignment.
You have been carefully selected to add value as members of the National Population and Housing Census National Security and Logistics Committee. Paramount among your duties is the responsibility to ensure adequate security and logistic arrangements to safeguard census personnel and materials, as well as mobilize logistic resources for the census.
The National Population and Housing Census is expected to be Nigeria's first digital census. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And News Central now continues in West Africa, where Burkina Faso's military junta said it has adopted the draft of an amended family code that criminalizes homosexuality. The West African nation has been among just 22 out of 54 countries on the continent that allows same-sex relations, which are punishable by death or lengthy prison terms in some states. Burkina Faso has been under military rule since two successive coups in 2022 and is part of a confederation with juntas in neighboring Mali and Niger. The law is to pass a parliamentary vote and then be promulgated by Tararo. And on to East Africa, Kenya's President William Ruto has dismissed most of his cabinet after deadly protest against his plan to raise more than $2 billion in new taxes. In an address to the nation on Thursday, Ruto retained his deputy and prime cabinet secretary. The move comes after he scrapped the plan to levy duties on everything from bread to diapers following protests that left at least 41 people dead.
On the measures I announced last week, barring state and public officers from engaging in harambes, I want to inform the country that the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill is now ready for publication tomorrow. However, even with the progress we have made, I am acutely aware that the people of Kenya have very high expectations of me. And they believe that this administration can undertake the most extensive transformation in our nation's history. Recent events that necessitated the withdrawal of the finance bill, which will require a review and reorganization of our budget and fiscal management, have brought us to an inflection point.
And now to discuss this in details, we're joined by Kennedy Muite. He is a political analyst and joins me live from Nairobi, Kenya. Kennedy, thank you so much for coming on. This news is quite an interesting move by President William Ruto. And it begs to ask a question about what prompted, the president to dismiss most of his cabinet. Is it just a protest, or is there more to this?
Judith, for this opportunity. And just to give you a bit of background is that
President William Ruto is the second person to do what he has done since President Mwai Kibaki did it in 2005 when he fired his whole cabinet. At that time, there was a problem where Raila Odinga, who was the prime minister then, who was in his cabinet, actually led people, and they were clamoring for what was constitutional changes at that time. This is the second time that a sitting president is doing so. But back to your question, there are many other matters that are coming up, not just what was brought up by the young people, but also there have been concerns about the performance of his cabinet since they came into office. Most of them have actually even been misadvising the president, and it has been evident in some of the things that have been happening. Also, another key matter is the grandiose that some of his cabinet members were showing. Others going on television station to say that they were wearing a 900,000 shillings watch, which is translating to quite a substantial amount of dollars. So this iked most Kenyans, and they were clamoring for change. Some of those members of parliament that were very close to him were contributing as much as $200,000, or no, $200,000. That is almost 2 million shillings Kenyan money in Harambes, and this really made people very angry, and they had said that enough is enough. So the president's action is a concoction of many other things, including the fact that there are some people in his cabinet that were not seeing eye to eye. Remember, President William Ruto and his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, are at this time not even seeing eye to eye. Some members of the cabinet were also disrespecting the deputy president. So in sending everybody home, the president wants a fresh start.
Now, in wanting a fresh start, do the people of Kenya accept this fresh start? Is this what they want? How are they reacting to it? Is this a welcome move for them?
There has been a myriad of reactions from across the country. That one I can basically tell you, Judith. And most people are happy that the whole cabinet has been set aside and the president is thinking again afresh on what to do next. One of the things that has come out, especially from the Generation Z, is that they are happy that President William Ruto has listened to them. Most of the demands that they were saying is that they do not want to sit down with President Ruto, as they have been considering themselves leaderless. So what they have wanted President William Ruto is to act. They've wanted him to fire some of his cabinet members. So what has he done? He's gone the Egypt way, where he sent away all the cabinet ministers and actually is thinking of starting afresh. Judith, another key matter that has come up is that 3 days ago, President William Ruto signed a document with opposition leader Raila Odinga and some of the opposition figures. In as much as it brought a bit of backlash back here in the country, where people were accusing Raila Odinga of going to bed with the government, the president has today gone ahead to say that he is reaching out to a broad-based approach that might include the inclusion of those opposition figures in a government of national unity. So Are the Gen Zs happy? Yes, there are people that are happy. Are Kenyans happy? Yes. The sound bites that we have seen across the country, the internet craze that has been created by the fact that President William Ruto has set aside his cabinet has actually shown that the pressure has shifted from the president and it has gone to some of the cabinet ministers whom people believed were not performing to the optimum.
All right. Well, Kennedy, we look to see what would happen in the new cabinet that he's going to bring in and if it would bring change that the people of Kenya want to see. But Kennedy, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. And that's
Thank
Kennedy
you very much.
He is a political analyst from Nairobi, Kenya. We switch gears now to Zimbabwe, where the president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, said earlier this week that the ZING will be fast-tracked to become the sole legal tender within 2 years. That puts at risk the use of US dollars ahead of a 2030 deadline when the current multi-currency system ends. The change would mean that US dollars now used in more than 80% of transactions would no longer be allowed. The Zing is the nation's sixth attempt in 15 years to have a functional local currency. Launched in early April, it backed by 2.5 tons of gold and $100 million in foreign currency reserves held by the central bank. And so to discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Nasha Kaisika. He is an economist and senior lecturer, University of Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for coming on. We're pressed for time, so very quickly, I would like for you to provide a bit of context on why the president of Zimbabwe made this announcement and what led to this decision.
Thank you very much. If you look in terms of Zimbabwe over the past 3 weeks, so the 3 months that we've launched our own local currency, we've realized that the local currency has managed to maintain its value and the prices have remained the same over the past 3 months after launching our own currency. And from this, we have also observed that the local currency has maintained its value against the US dollar in terms of the exchange rate, with the local currency only falling by about 1.56% since its launch in April up to now against the US dollar. So all these things, I think they are showing that the local currency have gained confidence with the sum of the public that we have, even though quite a number of transactions are still being done in US dollars, but people are gaining confidence in terms of the use of the local currency. So maybe these have led His Excellency to say maybe if we are moving towards the positive direction, we may think of having our own single currency working in the country.
Nasha, I'm concerned about, foreign direct investment, right, and how this would, affect this. So, in your opinion, are there implications, of making Zing the sole legal tender when it comes to the effect on it on foreign trade and investment in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, you know what? If you look in terms of foreign trade, especially Zimbabwe is not doing very well in terms of exports. Why? Because our exports are very expensive as compared to other products because we are using a strong currency, which is the US. If you compare with other neighboring countries which are using their own currencies, we now realize that whatever they are producing, they are costing using their own local currencies, which is making their products cheaper. However, we know that maybe this can dent a bit in terms of the foreign direct investment that may come into the country. Why? Because of the lack of stability of the currency that we're having. But once our own local currency have got its own stability, we expect even the foreign direct investors to come and invest in the country, hoping that the currency that they're also going to trade in is also going to maintain its value. Yes, we may now say that they would have lost their own currency or they would have lost their value because of the use of the local currency. But look, in terms of what other countries are doing, they are using their own local currencies. The South Africans are using their own rand, the Botswana are using their own pula, but foreign investors are still coming based on whatever the return that they're going to get in terms of investment in those countries. So yes, we expected that to be happening in terms of Zimbabwe.
Well, we'll look to see what happens. But Nasha, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. Dr. Nasha there, he is a senior lecturer with the university there in Zimbabwe. We're going to show a break. When we come back on the other side, there's more news outside of Africa. Stay with us. And welcome back. Saudi Arabia has appointed Nigerian Olympic gold medalist Eneffiong Udo Obong as technical director of Saudi Athletic Development Program. Udo Obong will be leading the Saudi Arabia team to the Olympic Games starting from the 26th of July. The 2000 Sydney Olympics gold medalist, who takes over at the Kingdom this weekend, was the technical director of the Lagos State Athletics Association. Udo Obong expressed excitement and has set his sights on seeing to the development of athletics in Saudi Arabia.
I will be in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'm supposed to leave immediately so that I can join up for the Olympic team. I know that whatever plans I have and whatever developmental arrangements I have, I will always have Lagos at the back of my mind. I already told them, even in the course of the interview, that we will have a joint partnership, an interrelational partnership with Nigeria, probably mostly spread with Lagos, to have like a Saudi Arabia, Nigeria kind of athletics competition. We brought out ideas that way. So I just want the people of Lagos to know that I will always think first Nigeria, think Lagos, before whatever program I'm doing to the development of.
Big congratulations there to Udo Abang from all of us here at News Central TV. But that's all we can take at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Meeting between President Bola Tinubu and Labour leaders end in deadlock as Labour insists on 250,000 naira minimum wage. Supreme Court declares it's unconstitutional for governors to hold local government funds. And over to Kenya, where President Ruto dismisses almost entire cabinet after protests. Now remember that you can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith, Atibi.